right, everyone. Welcome to episode one, the beginning, the renewal of the Elder Council podcast. My name is Jesse. I will be your host. This is a show all about D&D or any role-playing game, I guess, in the forms that I am most interested in, which is my experience with those games and running them for friends or I guess new friends to be, and kind of tweaking them in a way that I can use my experiences and my inspirations to kind of impress them upon the people that I'm playing with and use my kind of DM philosophies and ideas to craft the worlds that I'm interested in. That's kind of where I come at D&D and DMing from, is the world building, writing, creative side of things. I didn't grow up playing tabletop role-playing games at all. I have always been into board games and RPG video games, but I really didn't get into D&D until recently, within the last couple years. So I am starting this podcast to both keep everyone updated on my creative D&D pursuits, or I guess I should start just saying, RPG or 5e pursuits, that being creating my own campaign settings and adventure modules, that kind of thing. I'll talk about my current projects within that realm a little bit later on in the podcast. This first episode, I just kind of want to lay down the foundation, give you guys a little bit of a look into how things are going to be going on the channel and the show here. And then we'll get into the exciting podcast segments that we have later on here after a bit. But I just wanted to talk about kind of what you can expect out of the podcast. Obviously, I want to be able to give you guys the updates on what I'm working on and why, and kind of a little look behind the scenes. But I also want to have an additional resource to kind of ramble on some of my things that I want to work on or put into games, or give you guys some campaign updates. I do the live campaign every Wednesday, so I want to be able to give you guys the behind the scenes look at that and kind of, I guess, be able to have another outlet to absorb my thoughts after I've put them out, I guess, if that makes any sense. I think the more you collect inspirations and thoughts about things, if you're a creative type of person, you're just going about your day collecting, inspiration and ideas about whatever it is you're working on at the time. And if you don't express them through whatever medium it is, video, podcast, physical, fine arts, anything like that, I think if you don't express them, then those ideas eventually you kind of get overloaded and they start to pile up on each other and you may forget about some stuff. So I wanted to start the podcast to express some of those things throughout the weeks while I kind of come up with ideas that I want to put in my games or use for future games, or just even the kind of meta, maybe philosophical ideas about role-playing games in general, or just creative things in general. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, definitely stick around. But we will also be doing some more lighthearted and interesting, fun things on the show, with reviews of new D&D products and campaign settings, worlds, that kind of fun stuff. I also want to do some homebrew reviews, find some of the custom-made homebrew content out there on the web that's available in cool places like DM's Guild, or anything like that. The D&D subreddits, there's tons of those that are super interesting. Matt Colville's stuff, obviously. We'll be talking about other D&D campaigns and how they relate to my own game, your games, how you can run your stuff. And I want to do reviews of inspirations and things that are not necessarily, official or homebrew releases of D&D content, but things that can also relate to crafting your own game world, I guess. And one thing that we're going to do every week, just for fun, and I know a million other people have done this, and people have made entire podcasts just for this reason, but I want to take a look at some Monster Manual stuff every week, do a little bit of, not a super deep, historical dive into the monsters like some people do and give you the entire rundown of everything about it. I want to take a look at my favorite Monster Manual entries throughout the years, not necessarily only 5e Monster Manual monsters, but take a look at some of my favorites, give you some ideas on what I think about them, and some ideas for how I would run them in a game, how I would go about fighting them strategically as a player, and some ways that you can change them to make them more fun or more difficult or more easy, anything like that. So stick around for the end for that. We will be talking about what I think is the most iconic monster in all of D&D. So, current projects, what I wanted to get into right away, stuff I'm currently working on as far as design, I guess, is the world of Triune, the next campaign setting that we'll be kind of jumping into on the channel after our current campaign wraps up, which I guess I should get into a little bit. If you are new to the channel or you're, I guess, just tuning into the podcast, let me just say, this is being recorded live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Elder Council. If you are tuning into this from your personal podcasting choice of audio programming, I guess, you can come in anytime on Thursdays after 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, U.S., and we'll be recording this live, and you can check it out. It should be going up every week on Thursdays. I will try to be uploading these podcasts the week prior, or afterwards, I guess. So we'll be recording these live, and then the next Thursday, the recorded version audio will go up, and then we'll be doing a live podcast that evening. So every week, when you see a new podcast go up, you can get the reminder that there's a live one going on that night. So be sure to mark down your calendars or whatever you want to do and try to check it out. So if you are new to all of this stuff, then you should also know that every Wednesday we do the Elder Council campaign, the live actual play 5e game on the Twitch channel, and it's an entirely homebrewed game set in my own custom campaign setting that is based kind of on a familiar place to most newcomers of D&D, I guess. I tried to make it the most simple and easy, user-friendly thing as far as a super complicated homebrew setting goes, for people that are new to D&D to get into and understand. When we started the game, a lot of my players were brand new. I think all of them except for one, it was pretty much their first campaign. So I homebrewed a setting based on the Forgotten Realms and Faerun. It was just kind of the apocalyptic, futuristic version of that, set in more of like a Mad Max deserted Faerun with none of the complicated politics and machinations and crowded places, but some of the same familiar geography and stylistic choices, I guess, with all of the basic races and whatnot. So we play every Wednesday, and the Elder Council campaign has been going on for close to 15 sessions now, I suppose, and it's a level 1 through 10 campaign. And after it's concluded, you can check out all the previous episodes on the Twitch highlights or on my YouTube channel, Elder Council on YouTube. You can find us over there. After it's concluded, I'm going to get into this new campaign setting that I'm designing, Triune, which is a kind of mixture between ancient kingdoms and a little bit of basic D&D with a lot of homebrew twist on it. Many of the player's handbook races will be appearing, but in forms that people are not super familiar with. And I'm spending a lot of my time working on Triune and designing the world for it. If you are familiar with National Novel Writing Month, this is something that a lot of the people from the chat and the channel are going to be familiar with me talking about. I'm going to be kind of trying to write my first book, and it's going to be set in this world Triune. So throughout the month of November, while the writing challenge is going on, I'll be doing live updates and writing streams where I'm brainstorming and kind of plotting out the novel outline live for everyone to come and check it out, get a little feel for the unique characters and plot of the world that eventually will be also the campaign setting that I'm going to be releasing as a full 5e add-on campaign guide. It's just to give you a little bit of a kind of hint and peek into what the flavor of the world is. It's very political and faction oriented, lots of different political factions, but they're all kind of ancient kingdoms with low technology, and it's a very new world that the ancient races of the world, the magical races, I guess I usually call them, I don't have a better word for it, the elves, dwarves, tieflings, that kind of things, they have been around on the plane for a really long time, and humans are the newcomers to the plane, kind of as they are. And humans showed up and started kind of mucking about in the very delicate politics of the world, and the ancient magical races did not like that, and they kind of took to their own and went off into their own isolation in their corners of the world, and they've kind of bolstered themselves in and made these really defensive political factions and strongholds throughout the multiple continents of the world, and humans are now kind of on this conquest to seek out these magical races and kind of reconnect with all of them and bring everyone back into the same political fold. And it's a lot more complicated than that, but it doesn't really need to be, I guess, for explanation purposes. For now, it's still in its infancy, and I'm working a lot on designing that. Other projects I'm working on, always doing the homebrew for the Wednesday campaigns. Pretty much the way that we've done it so far is the players have a hub world that they kind of stick to, and then they branch out, do an adventure that lasts for 1 or 2 levels. They do a dungeon, fight a boss, get some cool treasure. I really wanted to simplify this and make it a very beginner-friendly campaign, and then they go back to the hub world, get some cool new gear from the stores, and buy some new potions and whatnot, and then go back out on a different adventure. So each one has usually lasted 3 or 4 sessions or weeks so far, so in the off time I can kind of be plotting ahead, and I think we're going to have about 2 more dungeons / adventures before the big final boss fight. So if you're interested in seeing my DM notes for the campaign, or how I design each of these individual adventures during the downtime of the stream, you can check it out over on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/theeldercouncil. I post daily updates over there about what I'm working on, the DM notes for the stream and for the campaign, and all of my maps, magic items, enemy stat blocks, all of that kind of stuff gets posted up on the Patreon. And a lot of it is for free. The daily updates and all of that stuff and a lot of my DM notes I just posted up for free, but there's some cool stuff you can get on there as a subscriber as well. And like I was saying before the show started today, anyone who subscribes in any form on Twitch, Patreon, whatever it is, you'll be added to the list of supporters that gets printed in any official publication that I release, and you will also get your name or likeness or whatever you want added into the game world as an NPC or bit of history or magic item or spell or whatever. So that's pretty interesting and a little bit of a cool little bonus for supporting me, which I really do appreciate. It allows me to kind of go off on these crazy tangents and start a podcast and do all this fun stuff. As long as we're on the topic of current projects, I know I'm all over the place. This is my first episode. I promise you that I will nail this structure down, and it'll get a lot easier to listen to as time goes on. But as long as we're on the topic of current projects, I might as well mention The other thing I'm super excited about that we just started this week. Every Tuesday is our Elder Council world building stream. So if you come over to the Twitch channel, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, we are doing a live kind of mixture between brainstorming and designing session where I pull up the page. I guess we used World Anvil this last time. No sponsorship there. It's just an awesome website that you can collect your thoughts and designs for your D&D campaign setting in. But we use World Anvil, and I pull up the page and pull up some notes, and we just go to town on designing the entire campaign setting from scratch. This is separate from Triune, the one I'm designing on my own. This is the community campaign setting. We started it on Tuesday, and we got a ton of really cool ideas from community members and chat. We came up with some really interesting ideas for the backstory and the creation myth origin for the world. We came up with some really cool ideas for how the magic system works, and we started to get into some ideas for maybe which races will and will not appear in the campaign setting, as far as like the mechanical playability of the game from a 5e perspective comes into play. But it was super fun to kind of bounce ideas off of each other and bring my passion for this game and writing and game design into the community and kind of work off of each other and really put the ideas to you guys to come up with. And in the future, once we have all of these notes on the world collected, we will go back and do polls about everything. So once we get everyone's idea for the creation myth, we'll go back and do a poll, and the best one will be the one that sticks. And eventually, when everything about this world is finished, we will collect it and put it into a PDF, like an actual downloadable campaign guide, and it'll be available for everyone to play their own games at home in. And you can get to play a game with your friends that you can run in the world that you helped to create on stream, which I'm super excited about. I really think that's one of the coolest things that we're doing right now, and I can't wait to do some more of that. I think in the future, if it works well, we'll just do another one and at some other time. If we release this first one, then we'll start another world right after, and maybe we'll do it in a different setting. We'll go from the get-go planning on making a sci-fi campaign setting, or certain type of high magic fantasy, low magic. Like, we can come up with all sorts of ideas, and we can do polls for those, as well as figuring out what people are interested in trying to help design. So lots of cool stuff coming up as far as the projects that we're working on the channel. And the only other things I wanted to get into today was checking out the Unearthed Arcana and doing the monster manual review and kind of quick glance. So the first thing, Unearthed Arcana, let me get into the page here, pull it up. So if you are listening to the audio after the fact, I will upload this podcast on YouTube. So if you're listening to the audio on your podcast app, definitely consider checking this out, not only live on Twitch every Thursday night, but over on YouTube. You can see any of the visuals I add. We do have a pretty cool podcast logo and layout, thanks to my friend Tweedler92 on Instagram. Go check him out. And I will be providing some imagery and text and stuff like that for any time we check out a monster or new material or anything like that. So we will have the Unearthed Arcana text pulled up here on the screen. So if you're watching this or listening to it after the fact, I guess, just be aware that there might be some stuff. I'll try to narrate the best I can. Welcome, everyone. If you're just tuning in, thank you so much for being here for the first episode of the live podcast. Really appreciate it. And thanks for listening to it after the fact as well. So what I wanted to check out today, that was the dragon we'll be looking at later. The Unearthed Arcana. If you are unfamiliar, the way that Wizards of the Coast, the people who currently own and design and create and are Dungeons and Dragons, the way that they kind of get their new material into published form, it first has to go through the playtesting phase, which they kind of call the group of people that work on that, and the organization of the playtesting material, the Unearthed Arcana. It's an old name. It comes from, I think, an old actual publication that they put out a long time ago that was, kind of, obviously it's in the name. It was Arcana that was unearthed, that people had never found, lore and options and spells and stuff like that from way back in the day, kind of just to have some cool flavor. But nowadays, it's playtest content that they want to release to the masses to get some feedback on. They usually release it, and then a couple weeks later, they do a survey to see how people are finding it in their games. And I would really like to start incorporating it into our streams and our live campaigns. I'm going to start making NPCs for the players to kind of tag along with that will be these Unearthed Arcana subclasses to start testing them out. I think that's super interesting. But they just released some Unearthed Arcana not too long ago with a new monk and barbarian subclass, and now we, just a few weeks later, have some more treats for us, a sorcerer and warlock subclass, which is right up my alley. I'm super excited for. And it looks like we have a new subscriber. Kitsu, thank you so much for the sub. I will write you onto the list. I was just talking about this. If you sub during September, or you support this show on Twitch or Patreon from now on in any form, you'll get added to the supporter list, and your name will be turned into an NPC or some other type of historical item or treat or Easter egg in the campaign worlds that we're creating. So thank you so much. Anyways, back to it. Sorry about that. So right up my alley, the Sorcerer and Warlock, I'm super excited for. I was just talking about before the show started with a friend. The Sorcerer desperately needs more subclasses. It is really hurting for originality and interesting choices. I think they're all like the Shadow Sorcerer and stuff like that. They're not only mechanically good or interesting, but they're just kind of, they're all like really kind of lame and uninspired, like edgelord choices for the sorcerer. All you can really be is the red dragon sorcerer or the shadow sorcerer, and the tempest one. Is that what it's called? The tempest sorcerer or the storm sorcerer. That one's pretty cool. You can fly with your bonus action if you cast a spell or whatever, but you can only do it for 10 feet. And none of them really have that feeling, other than, I guess, the wild magic sorcerer. But that one, to me, is not that fun to play because it's just random horrible effects that most of them don't do anything. And the natural feeling of a sorcerer in Dungeons and Dragons, the only class that, just innately has its abilities, and it's, obviously it's kind of cliche in that it's a the hero, the chosen one type of a figure, which is not always the most exciting thing. So I really like when they go out of the box to make an interesting sorcerer subclass. We desperately need more of them, and this is a wonderful step in the right direction. So with no further ado, let's actually get into it. As you can see here, Unearthed Arcana, this is playtest content presented for playtesting and to spark your imagination. Very important. These game mechanics are in draft form, usable in your campaign, but not refined by final game design. So, obviously what that means in shorter terms, this stuff is often overpowered, it's not finished, it may be amazing, it may be horrible. This is not what it's going to look like when it's printed in a final book form. So, roll up a character, play it, see how it is. If it's super broken and overpowered, tell people about it, tell people what you like, tell people what you don't like, and do the Wizards survey on the D&D website and the Unearthed Arcana area of the website when it comes out, and let them know what's on your mind, But yeah, if they do end up keeping these subclasses the way that they are, I'll be pretty happy because they are quite overpowered, and I like when they bump up the power level a little bit. I think the Sorcerer and the Warlock could both use a little bit of extra power. Don't even talk to me about the Hexblade, because we all know how powerful that subclass is. That is not what I'm talking about. All right, Sorcerer's Origin. At first level, the Sorcerer gains the Sorcerer's Origin feature. Here is an option for that feature, Aberrant Mind. Really love this. An alien influence has wrapped its tendrils around you, warping you in both body and mind. Perhaps a psychic splinter lodged in your psyche after you suffered domination by an aboleth. Very cool idea. Maybe you were born somewhere tainted by the far realm, a planar blot that changed you forever. Or perhaps mind flayers kidnapped you, subjecting you to the nightmarish process of seramorphosis. But the transformation failed and left you altered. That right there is super interesting to me. I admittedly don't know as much about mind flayer lore as I should. I'm super excited to get into that more. I really love the mind flayers. I think they're interesting. But it's cool to know that seramorphosis can fail. I didn't know that that was really a process that could fail. I thought it was, they implant the little whatever face hugger type mind flayer bug in your brain, and then it eats your brain and turns you into one, right? And absolutely, I just someone in the live chat just mentioned that they're totally putting this up on UA for some sort of Baldur's Gate release. I absolutely agree, and I was going to mention that you can definitely tell with how much Mind Flayer stuff was in the Baldur's Gate trailer and how much that's going to be an influence on that game. That these kind of alien Mind Flayer and Far Realm inspired subclasses, they're obviously leading up to that, and I think the psionic stuff and even the monk and barbarian subclass that they just released, I think that the thing that they're probably planning on doing next year is either releasing a book alongside the Baldur's Gate release, like, or one that's kind of inspired by Baldur's Gate, or they are leading up to a new maybe Dark Sun type of a thing. I don't know if it's going to be exactly Dark Sun, but something kind of alongside that because of all this psionic stuff. So exciting stuff ahead as far as D&D goes. Anyways, back to the Sorceress Origin Aberrant Mind. So I like the little notes that they give you because sometimes without the fancy book and art and lore, it's kind of difficult to really get your head around the vibe of these things. So they give you a little bit of a note that says, regardless of its genesis, the aberrant mind origin imparts a sense of eeriness to your character. It can be as subtle as when your sorcerer reads a creature's minds. Anyone in their vicinity experiences a sense of dread. Or it could be unmistakable, such as sweating a sheen of viscous mucus when you're scared, like you're some dripping aboleth type monster. I think that's really interesting. So definitely get into the spirit of, making your character have this aberrant vibe to them. Maybe they were born in a world that was just barely touched by like a Cthulhu type being, and they were, tainted by it, but for whatever reason, unfathomable to mortal minds, the great old one left the world alone and had to go somewhere else for the time being. So there's still the disturbance, and you're still kind of tainted by that power, and you can access that as a sorcerer. I think that's a really interesting idea. So features that they get. What freaking spells and powers do I get, you're asking? A lot of them, actually. First level, Invasive Thoughts. At first level, you gain the ability to use a bonus action to magically create a telepathic link with any creature you can see within 30 feet. Until the link ends, you can speak to the target through the link, and if it understands at least one language, it can speak back to you. It lasts for 10 minutes. This is, your pretty standard. Your person becomes telepathic, and you can use that for one person. It does not have any sort of downside or limit to it. You can use it as many times as you want. Starting at first level, it looks like, is just a bonus action. It's pretty good. But this is nothing that's going to, mechanically change anything for you in combat. I think it's a great ability, and I really actually like it a lot when they add stuff that just changes your dynamics socially. This gives you a lot of options, especially because sorcerers are already really good faces for the party. Sorcerers and warlocks, obviously, because both of these are going to be your charisma-based casters, so you're already going to have a really good ability to be the talking face of the party. So if now you have a really high charisma and you can be telepathic, you can set up a lot of really cool situations for your role playing outside of combat, which I think that's always good. Especially if your character is going to be this gross looking, like uh, Cthulhu tainted, dripping, slimy sorcerer guy. You might need a little bit of telepathic help to persuade people into your ideas. Let's see, psionic spells. So this is kind of I think they'll probably change the name of this if they're, I don't know, psionic spells is an interesting name for the feature, but who knows? They might not. Starting at first level, your aberrant nature changes your mind in subtle but profound ways. You learn additional spells when you reach certain levels in this class. The spells count as a sorcerer spell for you, but doesn't count against the number of sorcerer spells you know. Pretty standard stuff. Let's get into it. At first level, your additional spells, you learn Arms of Hadar and Dissonant Whispers. Not bad. Third level, Calm Emotions and Detect Thoughts. Pretty standard. You're getting your, psychic kind of stuff. Fifth level, Hunger of Hadar and Sending. Seventh level, Compulsion and Everard's Black Tentacles. Getting pretty exciting there. And then ninth level, Modify Memory and Rary's Telepathic Bond. Modify Memory is a huge pickup here. That is, as far as role playing goes and stuff like that, it's pretty interesting. But just such a crazy, powerful spell and such a cool, lore and vibe to it, especially with this class, being the alien kind of psionic telepathic type of a sorcerer. Being able to cast Modify Memory is super cool. Not that anyone pretty much ever gets to cast 9th level spells. Like, if only we could be so lucky to be able to cast 9th level spells in our campaigns. But it's a cool thought. Another first level feature, all of this is first level so far. Warped Being. Starting at first level, your aberrant origin protects you from harm. This is pretty standard, but it's kind of cool. You get a bonus to your AC. Your AC is equal to 13 plus your Dex modifier while you aren't wearing armor. So, do Draconic Origin sorcerers get this? I don't remember if they do. I think they might. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. They do? Okay. So, yeah, 13 plus your dex, if you're going for, maxing out your charisma, it could make you a little bit multi-attribute dependent, a little mad, if you want to focus on your dex over your con. But I guess with this, it kind of gives you that pathway so you don't have to work on your con so much. You can put your second highest stat into dex and then third into con and not worry about it so much because you have a little bit of that bonus to your AC. Not horrible. 6th level, Psionic Sorcery. Beginning at 6th level, whenever you cast any of the spells gained from your Psionic Spells feature, so all of those extra ones I just listed, you can cast it by expending a spell slot as normal or by spending a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level. So at 6th level, let's say, when you just learned, Hunger of Hadar and Sending, you can just burn some of your sorcery points to cast those for free, essentially. So you have some additional options. It's pretty cool. And what's really good about it, I think, is using those, those littler spells, the first and third level spells, being able to cast Calm Emotions, Detect Thoughts by just burning some sorcery points, or Arms of Hadar by burning one sorcery point. Just giving you that extra bit of a mechanical push is a little nice. Also at level 6, psychic defenses, and you can tell with how many features you're getting each level. This is playtest material. They are definitely going to trim some of this fat off when the material is published. I don't imagine that they're going to give you so much out of these subclasses, but who knows? They might be going towards more of a design philosophy of giving you a little bit of an overpowered subclass, because that's the point of the game, right? Is to have fun building this character. And what's wrong with being a little overpowered? I think it's more on the job of the DM to provide a challenging world for your overpowered characters. Psychic defenses. At 6th level, you gain resistance to psychic damage, and you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. Pretty good, just all around defensive thing. I don't really know. Resistance to psychic damage, not that exciting. There's not that much going on. But if you are going into this character building it knowing that you're going to be doing like a heavy Mind Flayer campaign, like a Baldur's Gate type thing for the video game adventure that they're releasing. But, Mind Flayers, aboleths, any type of aberration heavy campaign, resistance to psychic is pretty good. It is one of the more rare things. Not a lot of things give you psychic resistance. There's not a lot of things that have it, so it could be useful, if you're in the right situations. Most of your combat encounters, it's not going to come up, but I guess when it does, it's a pretty big deal. It seems like what is it, like the opposite Gith thing? Like Giths naturally in lore are what, magic resistant, but they take a lot of extra psychic damage because their minds are so in tune with the psychic world, I guess, because of their history with the astral plane. I'm probably mixing up my lore a little bit there, but I think that's about right. 14th level with the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. Beginning at 14th level, you can unleash the aberrant truth hidden within your flesh. Oh, very interesting. As a bonus action, you can spend one or more sorcery points to magically transform your body for 1 minute. For each point you spend, you gain one of the following benefits. Now, this is interesting. So there's a list of benefits. You can gain one or more of them, however many you want, for a minute for the amount of sorcery points you spend. This is very similar to the Simic, what is it? The Simic mutant or whatever race, Simic something. Someone will remind me. The new Simic race from the Ravnica campaign source. You get all these awesome additions to your body. You can magically transform your body. So choice number 1, you gain a swimming speed equal to your walking speed and the ability to breathe underwater. Gills grow from your neck. Your fingers become webbed, or you grow lashing cilia that extend through your clothing. That is disgusting and amazing. Number 2, you gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed, and you can hover. As you fly, your skin glistens with mucus. These descriptions are incredible. Your body, along with any equipment you're carrying, becomes slimy and pliable. You can move through any space as narrow as 1 inch, and you can spend 5 feet of movement to escape from non-magical restraints or being grappled. That's pretty impressive right there. Being grappled is one of the strongest things that an enemy can do as a DM running something. Running a strength-based enemy, the old grapple and shove, or grapple and knock prone or whatever, is incredibly powerful. So this revelation in flesh feature, being able to just spend 5 feet of movement to get out of that grapple instead of having to beat a strength check, which as a sorcerer, surprise, you're not going to. That's very powerful. Are there any more of these choices? There's one more. Your eyes turn black or become writhing sensory tendrils. You're aware of the location of any hidden or invisible creature within 60 feet of you. So if you burn 4 sorcery points, you just get all of that for 1 minute. You become this flying, swimming, invisible monster sensing, pliable slime monster, and you can just, bend reality to your will for 1 minute. That's pretty cool. But it's very good for, dungeon traversing outside of combat. If you have a high cliff you need to get up to, boom, 1 sorcery point, you can fly. An underwater cavern, same thing, 1 sorcery point, no problem. You can fit through a keyhole, get to the other side, throw a couple lightning bolts or whatever in there, fireballs, clear out the room, and then unlock the door and give everybody a way in. Lots of things you can do with that. I think that's really good. Speaking of warping reality to your will, the 18th level feature, Warp Reality. I did not plan that. At 18th level, you become the focal point of a reality warping anomaly, as if you weren't already. As an action, you can magically radiate a transparent 20-foot radius aura for 1 minute. This might take the form of a sphere of rippling psychic energy, a fluctuating amoebic gel, or an extrusion of ephemeral parasites. Beautiful. Or some other manifestation. Yeah, of course. Or something else. Come on, you're always going to choose the extrusion of ephemeral parasites. Other creatures treat the aura as difficult terrain. That's pretty strong. And when they start their turn in it, they take 2d10 psychic damage. When you activate this feature, you can choose any number of creatures you can see to be unaffected by the aura. Wow, okay, this is powerful. So, 18th level, you, as an action, boom, you have a 20-foot radius aura around you. So this psychic field, essentially, anything inside it, it's difficult terrain, and they take 2d10 psychic damage, which, as we went over, hard to resist. Um, as a bonus action, you can end it early, but your team is not affected by this. If you choose, you can activate this. They can be unaffected. So you just, you start getting too many people on your tail. You activate this this warping reality field of psychic energy, and you can slow everybody down, do a little bit of damage. And here's the interesting part. As a bonus action, you can end the aura early. If you do so, you and any number of creatures you choose within the aura are teleported to a location you can see within 1 mile of you. What? Each creature must appear within 20 feet of you and in an unoccupied space. An unwilling creature that succeeds on a charisma saving throw will not be teleported. Okay, so that's really, really crazy. You can teleport everyone within your aura within a mile away of you, and they have to appear within 20 feet of you. So I am wondering, what if you are in the bottom of a valley, and someone else I'm in the chat is thinking of this as well. You're in the bottom of this valley, you teleport everyone up on to the top of a cliff, and the only unoccupied space around you is on the side of the cliff. Everyone that fails the charisma saving throw gets teleported up with you. Boom, they fall a mile down to their death. Or your fly speed from the previous ability, Revelation in Flesh, you teleport up to a mile up in the air. Everyone else that fails the throw fails and falls a mile, obviously, to their deaths. That's pretty amazing. There's definitely going to be some clarifying that Wizards is going to have to do on that ability, or maybe not, just leave it up to the DMs. I think if I was running the game, and you have to think about the context with this, it's an 18th level ability. At this point, 18th level, Wizards are casting Wish and stuff like that. So if a sorcerer wanted to pop their 18th level ability to teleport some people up into the air and drop them, I would let him do it. I think I'd just let him do it. Charisma save, it's an interesting one. At 18th level, you should have a pretty damn good DC to try to get these people with, and you can maybe try to set this up. Maybe knock some people out beforehand, and then use this. I don't know. You could teleport some people a mile down into the ocean or something. Who knows? You can figure out some cool stuff to do with this ability. It's very interesting. And even just as, the difficult terrain damage aura, not horrible. 2d10 damage at level 18, pretty much nothing, but you can figure out some cool stuff to do with this and the other amazing abilities that this subclass grants. Welcome, everyone. If you're just tuning into the live podcast, thank you so much for being here. And if you're checking this out at a later date on your podcast app of choice, be sure to remember to tune in live Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Elder Council, or you can go check it out later on the YouTube channel, and you can see all the amazing visuals we have as well. Thank you so much for being here. So that was subclass number 1 that was released today in Unearthed Arcana, the second of which I am super excited about. The Otherworldly Patron, the Warlock subclass that they released. Warlock, one of my favorite, I don't want to say my favorite, but one of my favorite 5th edition classes. I've always loved the, classes with options. You could make it kind of a martial class, like where the paladin is the mixture, like divine magic created class that leans more towards melee. The warlock is the opposite, that leans towards magic. I really love both of them. The Lurker in the Deep is the patron that was released today. This is kind of in the same vein as the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. The Lurker in the Deep is an entity that, getting a little bit away from the Cthulhu flavored stuff. We already have that. The Great Old One, Warlock. The Lurker in the Deep is you made a pact with an entity that lurks somewhere deep in the ocean or even on the elemental plane of water, such as a mighty kraken, an ancient primordial, or a monstrous being from creation's earliest days. Right away, I love it. We need more elemental stuff. There's not enough of that. This you could even have maybe made a pact with a like a djinn or a genie of water or something from the elemental plane of water. Who knows? So many cool things. But right off the bat, a kraken or a primordial, like a kraken warlock. Are you kidding me? How can you not love it? So many tentacles we're going to have with this class. So the Lurker's clutches. Several features of the Lurker in the Deep create tentacles or a maw that reach into the world. The form of these appendages should reflect the nature of your specific patron. For example, a Kraken's warlock might summon great squid-like tentacles, serrated crab claws, or a massive octopus beak, while the servant of a primordial water elemental might create tendrils or swells of living water. Really, really cool. Like I said earlier, I like the little bit of the, role-playing advice, just because I think people who are new have a little bit of a hard time just reading this blank wall of text. It lets you get into it a little bit and understand, like, oh, okay, so a kraken might actually bestow this power of, squid tentacles on you, or a water elemental. Obviously, you're going to be summoning these like typhoons of water. It makes sense. As with all subclasses, you get an expanded spell list. The Lurker in the Deep lets you choose from first level, create or destroy water. Very mechanically good for a warlock. This is like much different than expected. And Thunder Wave. So the damage types that these abilities are going to be giving us here later in the subclass features, a lot of them let you choose between like lightning and cold damage, or lightning and cold damage. So you can be a storm elemental type, the kraken that summons the great storm and shoots people with thunderbolts, or you can be the water elemental type guy that hits people with cold and ice damage. So I think that's pretty cool. So first level, create or destroy water, thunder wave, basic but good stuff. Second level, gust of wind and shatter. Shatter, quite strong. Third level, here we go. Lightning Bolt and Sleet Storm. Both obviously very powerful spells, but Lightning Bolt I feel like is one of my favorite, most underrated third level spells. It's fireball, but in a straight line instead of a big circle. So obviously it's most of the time not as good, and most people don't pick it for that reason. But thematically and flavor wise, I think Lightning Bolt is so amazing. And just shooting a lightning bolt through a straight line of people there's nothing cooler than that. And just for me, my own personal selfish desires, I would much rather be able to shoot lightning than fire. I think it's just so much cooler, especially if you're this crazy creepy water tentacle warlock guy. Like, shooting lightning is just so creepy. It's the Darth Sidious dream, right? So fourth level, control water and Everett's black tentacles. And fifth level, commune with nature and cone of cold. You get a lot of really interesting offensive options with this. And don't forget, you're a warlock the whole time. You're just going to be spamming Eldritch Blast anyways, but now at least you can maybe throw a lightning bolt in there every once in a while. Cone of cold, pretty good. Black tentacles, always pretty good. So let's get into the features. I'm loving both of these class options as well. I'm really glad you guys are enjoying them too. I'm super excited about this stuff. First level, Lurker in the Deep feature, Grasp of the Deep. It gets into it right away here, you guys. This is so cool. First level, you gain the ability to magically summon a spectral tentacle. This is exactly what you want out of your Kraken patron. As a bonus action, you create a 10-foot long tentacle at a point you can see within 60 feet of you. So anywhere within 60 feet, 10-foot tentacle sprouts, lasts for 1 minute or until you use this feature to create another tentacle. When you create the tentacle, you can make a melee spell attack against a creature within 10 feet of it. Right away, I'm going to tell you, this is busted. It's very good, very good. On a hit, your target takes 1d8 cold or lightning damage, your choice when it takes the damage. And its speed is reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. When you reach 10th level in this class, the damage dealt by the tentacle increases to 2d8. As a bonus action on your turn, you can move the tentacle up to 30 feet and repeat the attack. So, right away, listen to this. At first level, as a bonus action, you just, yeah, exactly, you get a like spirit weapon, essentially, like a spiritual weapon for a warlock. You get the damage doesn't matter so much, although it's not bad. 1d8, it's kind of like an extra blast from Eldritch Blast, but 60 feet away from you, you can create this tentacle, and you can attack things 10 feet away from the tentacle with it. So something could be 70 feet away from you. You can hit it with the tentacle, and then it gets a reduced speed until your next turn. So you can really prevent something from getting anywhere close to you with this thing. Combined with Eldritch Blast and the Eldritch Blast that pushes things away, you can pushes or pulls. You can really control the battlefield with this this Warlock subclass, which the Warlock was already kind of a specialist at that anyways, but this, I think, specifically, this subclass is really made for, pushing people around, hitting them with this tentacle, slowing them down. You can move the tentacle, attack somebody else on your next turn, and slow them down as well. And you can summon the tentacle a number of times equal to your charisma modifier per long rest, is what it says, which is a very strange. I don't know if they're going to keep that. I think they might change it in final release. What I would do is probably make it, I don't know, maybe you can only use it once or twice, but you get it back every short rest. Like, it's a very warlock thing to refresh everything on a short rest. So who knows? It seems like it's going to be very powerful to me. We will have to test it out and see how it goes. Kind of like a powerful mage hand. Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. You get more things at first level. You don't just get the amazing spectral tentacle, which is incredible. You also get Scion of the Deep. At first level, your patron accepts you into its inner court of servitors. You can telepathically communicate with any aberration, beast, elemental, or monstrosity that has an innate swimming speed while it is within 120 feet of you. The creature can understand you and respond telepathically. I think that is one of the weirdest things. Just, this is a feature that is very much for your thematic and role-playing capability. You can telepathically communicate with any aberration, beast, elemental, or monstrosity. I guess as a DM, I would probably rule that this counted, for pretty much any little underwater being, fish, anything like that. Aberrations underwater, the only ones are going to be aboleths and stuff like that. If you're underwater talking to an aboleth, you have very big problems on your hand unless for some reason you're in a campaign where the underwater aboleth is your friend. I want to play in that game because that sounds crazy. But I just don't see where this Scion of the Deep feature is going to come up. If it does, let me know. I think that's pretty interesting. Underwater beasts, maybe, if that's fish and sharks and stuff like that, if those count as beasts in the monster manual, I will have to check. That's pretty cool. Talk to fish, whatever. That's cool. Level 6. Fathomless Soul. At 6th level, your patron grants you greater abilities. You gain the following benefits. You can now permanently breathe both air and water. You gain a swimming speed equal to your walking speed, and you gain resistance to cold damage. So this is kind of like one of those things that the 16th or whatever level sorcerer, I think maybe 14th, I have it right here, we can just look at it. 14th level sorcerer had this burn a sorcery point to get the swimming speed and ability to breathe underwater. You just get that permanently, 6th level. Go warlocks. Resistance to cold damage is also nothing to scoff at if you're in a certain type of campaign. Sometimes it comes up. Who knows? Guardian Grasp. Another 6th level lurker in the deep feature. At 6th level, the tentacle you create can defend you and others. This is pretty good. When you or a creature you can see takes damage within 10 feet of the tentacle, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage to the chosen creature by half. After doing so, the tentacle vanishes. This is extremely powerful. If you are fighting, this is even good into the late game. If you're fighting, let's say, the monster of the evening that we're going to be talking about here later on shortly, if you're fighting an ancient red dragon, and as the warlock, you're pretty damn squishy, and so is your druid friend that's sitting next to you, passing out good berries, and you're eldritch blasting this thing, and you see it turn, and it's about to come and attack the two of you, and it's going to hit you for 150 damage or whatever crazy thing it does. You can summon your tentacle and just park it right next to you, and when that blast comes and hits you, you can just burn the tentacle. The tentacle disappears, but you only take half damage. So if you have enough time to set up, you can just use it essentially as a giant shield wall excuse me, that just will guarantee take half damage of an attack on you. So if you have time to set it up, that's pretty good. If not, you're usually going to be using this tentacle at a very far range away from you, so not always going to be amazing. But if you have the tentacle really far away from you, and your tank in your party is also next to it fighting the front line of enemies, and your tank is about to go down, then you can use it to save the tank as well, just by burning the tentacle. So all around, while some of this stuff seems situational, it's very, very good utility to have. The ability that is also, it's already a good little extra bonus damage occasionally. Just sometimes it's going to save your life, and that's pretty good. It doesn't cost you anything to do so other than just burning up the tentacle, so that's not bad. 10th level, Devouring Maw. This one kind of, I feel like both of these subclasses, they kind of copied each other a little bit on them, but they're both interesting. Starting at 10th level, you can magically draw forth a manifestation of your patron's insatiable hunger. As an action, choose a point you can see within 60 feet. For 1 minute, a translucent maw manifests in a 10-foot radius centered on that point. Each creature in that area, when the maw appears, must succeed on a strength saving throw against your spell save DC or be restrained. Any creature that starts its turn in the maw takes 3d6 cold or lightning damage. As an action, a restrained creature can repeat the saving throw and free themselves on a success, of course. At the start of your turn, if there's something in the maw's area, you gain temporary hit points equal to your warlock level. So minimum of 10 if you are getting this feature at 10th level. So if you summon this maw, stuff gets restrained and trapped there, takes a bunch of damage. So you can imagine thematically, you summon the spectral version of the Kraken that comes up and starts grabbing onto people. Thank you so much for the follow. Really appreciate that. Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much. Let me make sure that I have the notifications pulled up. Mahmood King, thank you so much for the follow. I really need to probably turn off the notifications while we record the live podcast, just so the audio doesn't spike and go all crazy, but much appreciated. Thank you. And I guess that's why we do it live, right? That's half of the fun of it. So if you are checking this out later on your podcast app of choice or YouTube or whatever, come on in and catch us live Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. But you can imagine you're summoning the spectral version of your Kraken or water elemental or whatever that comes up, starts grabbing people in this 10-foot radius and restraining them, doing damage to them. And if they get caught there and stuck, and then it gets back to your turn again, you start gaining a lot of temporary HP, which is very good. Yeah, Tempest Cleric would multi-class with this very well. I think that's a really interesting idea. I like it. I think you should go for it. Let's see. 14th level, Unleash the Depths. Starting at 14th level, you gain the ability to call upon your patron for aid. I love stuff like this. Patron-inspired classes, clerics with their deities, paladins, warlocks, druids. I love when they give you abilities that naturally kind of play into the role-playing and make you use the patron. So, you gain the ability to call upon your patron for aid. As an action, you choose a point within 30 feet of you where your patron tears through reality, manifesting a measure of its thalassic grandeur. Beautiful writing right there. Thalassic grandeur. Choose one of the following effects to issue from this manifestation point. Once you use either effect, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. More long rest speech there, which I don't know if they're going to stick with that or go to the short rest thing. Who knows? Warlock stuff. So you call upon your patron, and any point within 30 feet of you, you can choose Transport, which is you and up to 5 willing creatures of your choice within 30 feet of the manifestation point are grasped by the spectral tentacles and yanked through your patron's realm. The tentacles transport you and the chosen creatures to a point of your choice within 100 miles of you that you have visited within the past 24 hours. That's crazy to me. That is crazy and very powerful. Fury. You can direct a barrage of spectral tentacles to issue forth and strike up to 5 creatures within 30 feet of the manifestation point. So this is kind of like an extreme version of like black tentacles or something like that. Each target must make a dex save against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the creature takes 6d10 cold or lightning damage and is knocked prone. On a save, it is half damage and not knocked prone. The tentacles then vanish. So level at 14th level, once per long rest, you can either teleport 100 miles with your whole party, which is insane to me, or you can do a giant 6d10 lightning damage prone AoE storm for free, just as an action, not even a spell slot or anything. So you pretty much get a version of Fireball, and it's even better, way more damage. 6d10 on average is going to do what, 33 damage, so not bad. And knocking everyone prone is very powerful, especially combined with, other characters, other players' abilities, giving pretty much everyone advantage against the entire enemy group is very impressive. Absolutely, as a Tempest Cleric, being able to just max out that damage, just straight up 60 lightning damage, knock everyone prone. You can't go wrong with that. And the other ability just teleports your team 100 miles away. That's just crazy to me. You can do so much with that. You finish a dungeon, boom, 100 miles away. You might just be back in town in your bed in the inn, and you're done. Like, boom, we got our treasure. No, none of this nonsense of traveling. We're done. So love the implications of these abilities. Let's see what else we have. Oh yes, okay. So that's the end of the 2 subclasses. I really enjoyed those. I can't wait to check those out. We're going to be putting those into our games for sure. But there's something else that I think this might even be my favorite thing about the Unearthed Arcana that was released today. Not only do we get a new sorcerer origin, not only do we get a new warlock patron, we get a new spell. A new cantrip suitable for psionic-themed spellcasters, Mind Sliver. It appears on the sorcerer, warlock, and wizard spell list. I also think that they probably should add this to the bard spell list by the time that this gets officially released, because most bards, if you see the like additional spells that both of those subclasses got added to them, most of those spells you can just naturally get as a bard. So bards have a lot of like psychic type stuff just naturally from doing the musical spellcasting thing. A lot of their stuff just tends to naturally be psychic or psionic flavored things anyways. So I'd be happy to see this Mind Sliver cantrip get added to the bard spell list as well. And it's an enchantment cantrip, just naturally fits with the bard. But what does it do? Casting time, 1 action, range of 60 feet. Duration 1 round. You drive a disorienting spike of psychic energy into the mind of 1 creature you can see within range. Target must make an int saving throw, and unless the saving throw is successful, this weird wording for the Unearthed Arcana here. So target must make an intelligence saving throw or take 1d6 psychic damage. Seems like your basic cantrip, pretty horrible. Although intelligence saving throws, I think are particularly good. Not a lot of monsters have a high intelligence. If you're going up against goblins and stuff early game, and remember this is a cantrip, this is what you're going to be casting level 1 on your sorcerer, warlock, wizard. Not a lot of the goblins and orcs and stuff you're going to be fighting, skeletons, whatever, have a high intelligence. So you're usually going to hit them. But wait, there's more, exactly. So unless they save, they take 1d6 psychic damage, and the next time it would make a saving throw before the end of your next turn, it must roll a d4 and subtract the number rolled from the save. Here is another reason I think that bards should get this. This thing kind of just naturally has Bane or Cutting Words just added onto it. It's so good. So just like bare minimum, let me explain this. You cast Mind Sliver on somebody, they fail. They take 1d6 damage. So they take 3 damage. Next turn, the next time it makes a saving throw, so the next player in your party that makes it save gets a better chance for it to fail. Or if nobody else uses any ability that makes it save, the next time you just cast Mind Sliver again, then it has a 1d4 lower chance of saving again. So you can just keep doing this. It only lasts for 1 round, but you just keep doing it. And as a cantrip, that is pretty powerful. And it has the cantrip regular, damage increases by 1d6 at 5th, 11th, and 17th level. So I think even at 5th level, obviously as a warlock with Eldritch Blast and these other abilities, you're going to have better things to do. But if you know, like, all right, I go and then my cleric goes and I really need this thing to fail my cleric's saving throw for whatever ability he's going to use, I'm going to use Mind Sliver, and you're going to get to do 2d6 damage to him, which is not bad, like it's free damage. Might as well do it. But then it has that little extra bane added to it, so that your next party member has that extra chance of doing their thing too. So it gives you so much more utility. And like I said, this subclass is already, like, I think it's so focused on being this like battlefield, master tactician utility caster. You can do a lot of damage, but really, like, if you're pushing people around, setting up advantage for your other party members, and being like this backfield like manipulator, and you're giving your party members a higher chance to succeed on their abilities, like, everyone's going to love you. You're going to be amazing at role playing. You're a charisma class, so you can be the face of the party. Like, this is a very, very fun and interesting class to me. I think I really want to play this, and it looks like a lot of fun for your party to play as well. If I was playing a fighter or a cleric or whatever, and I had a friend that was playing this warlock and had this, this Mind Sliver spell or whatever, I'd be really happy to play in that party with them. Or the sorcerer, both of these classes I think are really interesting. Cool. Hope you guys enjoyed the Unearthed Arcana stuff. Maybe next week we will jump into the last release, just because I like talking about this stuff, and maybe some of you guys aren't familiar with the newest Barbarian and Monk subclasses as well. But I really love these. I definitely am going to be trying to play some stuff with these, or at least designing some characters to add into my games with these. So check out maybe next Wednesday or the following Wednesday to see if I add some NPCs that have these subclasses on them. But the next thing I wanted to get into is the monster manual entry, and we will talk about it right now. The Ancient Red Dragon, appearing on the screen as if summoned. So this is something I want to do every week, kind of a little quick segment of the podcast, like the nice wind down last segment of the podcast every week. I want to do a quick glance, and I'll probably, we'll come up with a cool name for the segment or whatever. I really expect this podcast to grow and be shaped by our community over time. But I wanted to start it off with the first glance into the monster manual with the Ancient Red Dragon. And I think there's good reason for that. I think it's the most iconic monster in Dungeons and Dragons. You could have an argument for a couple of other things, obviously beholders and stuff like that. Beholders and things that, D&D itself has created are iconic in a way. But I don't think that there's fantasy role-playing games, and I don't think there's really much fantasy pop culture without the Ancient Red Dragon. And if you're not familiar, if you're new to the game, if you've never fought one of these things, or if you've never encountered one, you need go no further than probably the most famous fantasy franchise of all time in the Tolkien universe, Lord of the Rings, specifically The Hobbit, I guess. This is just directly ripped off from that. I don't know if in the lore, if there's any earlier reference in fantasy books to the Red Dragon, like the Ancient Red Dragon, if it really is just Smaug that is like the OG, reference for all this stuff, the reason why everyone loves these things so much. Obviously, they are appearing in folklore and religious tales, and they originate from other places. But as far as the fantasy community, the ancient red dragon is Smaug from The Hobbit, and it's amazing, and it's really brutal. It's a very strong boss. Is if you're a DM that wants a classic way to finish off a campaign, look no further than the ancient red dragon. Little bit of history on D&D dragons. They come in a variety of ages, I guess we'll say, sizes, whatever, however you want to put it. Let me see the actual categories here. There are different categories of dragons. There's wormlings, there's young dragons, there's adult dragons, and there's ancient dragons. Each of those has its own size category: medium, large, huge, and gargantuan. The most interesting thing about it with the ancient red dragons, they're gargantuan in size, but this means that they're in the age range of 800 years or more. So this really is the ancient brooding dragon that's living in its horde. And let me get back to the ancient red dragon here on my notes. But these are the covetous, treasure hoarding, vain dragons. As far as what the monster manual says here, it's based off of what you know from the movies and the tales. The dragon that's sitting on the mound of gold in its hoard that tirelessly seeks to increase their treasure. Their conceit is reflected in their proud bearing and their disdain for other creatures. This thing, all it cares about is how much it knows that it is the ultimate being and that it deserves all of the treasure in the world because of that. I think that they're a classic monster to finish off a campaign with. Send your heroes on the quest to defeat the dragon. It's going to be a pretty long quest because you're going to want to be pretty high level before you fight one of these things. I don't know specifically what level party I would say you want to be at. Definitely not lower than 15 if you want to send a party of people to fight an ancient red dragon. They obviously get their legendary actions and all that cool stuff, but just stat wise, this thing is coming in with almost 550 HP just on the average, AC of 22, speed of 40, climbing speed of 40, 80 fly. So this thing's going to fly around. It has a pretty dang high AC. You're never going to do enough damage to kill it. And all of its stats are pretty incredible. 30 strength, 29 con. Obviously, if you are unfamiliar, the best way to fight a dragon is with dex saves, which fortunately pretty common. I think a lot of those new subclasses that we just checked out had some cool dex save abilities, maybe with some of those tentacle spells. So there you go. You're already getting some strategy. Use your cool new tentacles on the dragons. Try and take them down. But you can just do some really cool things with these. I think that they're so popular and so, omnipresent in the fantasy role-playing game world that I think they've almost become underrated. That, people just are trying to constantly come up with some cool new super badass bad guy to finish off the campaign with. And nobody just goes like, here's an ancient red dragon. Try to kill it before it kills you. You're probably going to fail. I think that's a really cool idea. If you want to know where the dragons in D&D come from, specifically, not just it's a ripoff of Lord of the Rings or whatever, the dragons, well, at least the chromatic dragons, which would be the white, blue, black, red, and green, I believe, dragons, which is a funny coincidence. Same colors as Magic the Gathering, which is another Wizards of the Coast company / product. All of the chromatic dragons are born from Tiamat, the queen of all the dragons, the god of the chromatic dragons. And she was one of the rulers of Avernus, the now first layer of hell. She was stripped of her title of ruler of Avernus by Asmodeus. Zariel is now the ruler of Avernus, and I think that that's kind of what the new book Descent into Avernus is all about that comes out later this month, actually. Super excited about that. Maybe we'll get some Tiamat lore in there. But Tiamat is a 5-headed dragon that each head is one of the colors of the chromatic dragons. She's said to be the, birth mother of all of these evil dragons. And the chromatic dragons are evil. The white, blue, black, red, and green dragons are the evil colors and breeds of dragons in D&D. Not to say that they're just evil beasts. They're incredibly smart. If you were to run into an ancient red dragon, it would be much like, the encounters in The Hobbit. It may not just torch you alive. It's very likely that it does, but it might, toy with its prey a little bit, talk to it, see what its plan was, maybe figure out, where did you come from? Did you come from a place with a lot of treasure? Could I keep you alive and follow you and get that treasure before I kill you and your whole village and your whole family and all that good stuff? So if you're a DM wanting to use the ancient red dragon as, the big bad evil campaign ending boss, play it like a genius ancient magical being. These things are 1,000 years old, smart enough to have survived for 1,000 years when everyone on the planet is trying to kill dragons all the time because they're so horrible and scary. That it survived 1,000 years, stealing everyone's money, and still hasn't been killed. So obviously this thing's pretty damn smart. So play it like that, and I think you can make a really interesting campaign that way. If you want to start, just a basic, like, I want to play a classic D&D campaign with 4 people, a fighter, a cleric, a wizard, and a rogue or whatever, just the most basic classic thing ever, pick an ancient red dragon, and I think you can't go wrong if you play it correctly. Make it torment players, make it burn down the surrounding villages, make it steal their treasures, someone loses a family member, and build it up over time. And by the time they get to this high level, it'll be a real true fight, and maybe the dragon has already heard of the players. It knows that they're coming, and it knows that they've been leveling up and trying to hunt it down, and it's prepared for them. So it's built this layer that is, like the perfect trap to get your players, and they have to work through it. I think you can do so much with a dragon other than just like it's sitting in a room on a pile of gold and it breathes fire. Like, make it into the big bad ultimate enemy that you want in your campaign. Someone said on the level of an aboleth, I think an aboleth is a fantastic end campaign boss. Maybe for a little bit of a lower level campaign, I'd probably throw an aboleth at, like a 10th level party or something like that. Although if you play an aboleth correctly and intelligently, you could certainly party kill any level of party with an aboleth. Probably they're pretty smart and crazy. But yeah, same thing. An ancient dragon, an aboleths are like really ancient, like the beginning of time. So they're like as smart as it gets, obviously, right? They're telepathic. They know the history of pretty much the entire world, at least whatever world that they're on. They're older than the gods themselves. So aboleths, they have beyond just, their typical intelligence. But I think if you're a whatever level 30, 1,000-year-old ancient red dragon, there's not much you could do better than to be that, and as far as outsmarting a party goes. So I really think people should pay more attention to, as a DM, role play your villain. Play the villain as they would actually play. Try to win. A dragon is not just going to roll over and let a party kill it and take its treasure. It's defended that treasure successfully for thousands of years. So treat it as such. I think that really will help you improve your campaign and make it a little bit more realistic. It has some cool abilities, lots of stuff. Like I said, I don't want to get too deep into it. There's people that do podcasts for that. If you're interested in monster manual podcasts, people will tell you every stat and ability and history of every monster, all that stuff. I just want to talk about like how I would run the thing, stuff that I like about the monsters, and we'll talk about a different one every week and some of my favorite ones. Next week we maybe will do the Medusa, because we just finished killing the Medusa in our live campaign on the Wednesday Elder Council campaign. So I kind of want to give some thoughts on Medusa and what I did to change it and make it a little bit more interesting. I think that's going to do it for today, for the first episode of the live podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for putting up with it. I know it was a little bit difficult at times with me rambling so much. I promise I will I will get this thing down and we will improve the quality of this. I will go through. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube. So if you're listening to this live right now, thank you so much for being here. Check it out on YouTube later, or if you are on your podcast app, like I've said previously, come on Thursday nights to twitch.tv/Elder Council. You can see it live, as well as the other stuff we do on the stream. Come by, give a follow, and check out the other streams that we do. We don't just do the podcast. We have lots of other D&D content going on. And I think that's going to be it. We'll be back next week. If you're listening to this the day it comes out on podcast apps, come on by tonight. And I'm going to try to do that release schedule every time the podcast comes out in audio form. There will be a new live podcast premiering that night. So you can always, try to stay caught up on them, and it'll give people a little bit of a reminder to come by the live stream. Thank you all so much. I'm going to call it a day on the podcast and say some parting words on the stream here. So have a good one, everybody. And thank you.